Welcome to the Marketing AI SparkCast, where AI meets modern marketing. Hosted by Aby Varma, a global leader in marketing, AI, and innovation, each episode brings you real conversations with leaders putting AI to work in strategy and execution. This episode is brought to you by Spark Novus and the Marketing AI Pulse community. Here's your host, Aby Varma.
Welcome, everybody, to the Marketing AI SparkCast. I am your host, Aby Varma. I am the founder and CEO of Spark Novus and the Marketing AI Pulse community. This episode is sponsored by our Marketing AI Pulse community. If you're not a member, you can join for free at marketingaipulse.com to connect with other marketing leaders who are navigating AI so that you don't have to do it alone. Speaking of which, you can mark your calendars for a really exciting session coming up. We have the Claude ecosystem training for marketers. It's a 3-part certificate series running from July 16th, 23rd, and 30th from 12 to 1 p.m. Eastern. We cover Claude Chat, Design, and Claude Code. Podcast listeners get 20% off, and you can use the code SPARK20. So with that out of the way, I want to talk about today's episode. We are going to look at AI's impact on consumer insights, synthetic research, creative testing, audience segmentation with David Jacobson. David is the Global Senior Director of Applied Consumer Science at the Coca-Cola Company. He brings 25 years of marketing strategy and experience, including roles at Publicis Sapient and PwC. Super excited to have him. David, welcome to the podcast.
Great. Thank you, Aby. Great to be here. Appreciate it.
We're recording this July 3rd, David. So thank you very much for spending your day off with us. Do you have any plans for the long weekend?
Yeah. So 4th of July weekend, I think I might check out the annual 4th of July Day Parade in Dunwoody, but it's going to be hot out there. So we'll see how it goes. I want to bring my little puppy, but it might be too hot for her. And then I think tomorrow night, got Don McLean playing at City Springs in Sandy Springs. So I might check that out as well.
Well, thank you again for making the time, David. Now, we would love to know a little bit about your background. I think you've been with Coca-Cola for about almost 3 years, but you've been in this industry for 25 plus years. Tell us a little bit about your role at Coca-Cola and maybe walk us backwards on how you landed at Coca-Cola in the world of marketing insights and analytics.
Absolutely. I started in traditional advertising in ad agencies at TBW Ray Chiat Day in Los Angeles, and then eventually in New York. But as your traditional kind of brand strategist, researcher, doing kind of traditional research and focus groups and understanding the consumer, the voice of the consumer, writing creative briefs, working with creative teams to develop campaigns. And then I was, I guess, lucky enough, which is the right place at the right time in terms of the evolution of technology and digital, where in the late 90s, around the first .com rise and bubble and burst of being around how digital technologies started to shape the advertising industry. And we started building websites and building experiences and digital, and just was at the front row seat to how digital was starting to change, not just marketing, but research and everything around the marketing industry. Jumped into the deep end, really understanding digital, and it's not really shaped the industry, not just in how we develop campaigns, and then developed to say marketing campaign wasn't just how we include digital and websites and that, but the entire notion of how we create experiences in marketing really changed. And then that shift continued as I went from there. I founded my own ad agency in Miami, where I'm originally from, with a couple partners. So we started to do a little bit of everything: experiential marketing, website, traditional advertising. That led me to SAP, which was very much an experiential agency rooted in technology. I was there when we were acquired by Publicis. And in that world really started to change how I looked at marketing, the role of research and insights, because it really was about really not just understanding the consumer and developing a brief and a core creative idea for a campaign, but really how we can engage consumers in all aspects of marketing across multiple touch points. The number of touch points increased dramatically, exponentially in the last 10, 15 years or so. And then I was moved from Sapient to PwC, similar consulting role in experience consulting. But one thing I always wanted to do was go to the brand side on the client side. After years in advertising and consulting, and having moved here to Atlanta 10 years ago, Coke was always one of those brands and companies here locally in Atlanta, obviously, but even globally, that is well admired. Yeah, I got the opportunity to come to Coke from PwC, and it's been great so far. So at Coke, I sit on the global human insights team, and we do a lot of piloting of new research, now a lot with AI audience segmentation, how we are applying new technologies into what we do in terms of understanding consumers. We really have a human-centric approach, which I even learned at PwC, really, in terms of service design and human-centered design. And we apply that to our marketing. Really, how can we understand consumers? And whether we're creating a campaign, piece of communication, or an experience like now, World Cup is upon us. And it is the biggest activation we've ever done globally, as we're one of the lead sponsors here in the US and Mexico and Canada. So it's been great to see how we can really apply that to every aspect of the campaign, not just ads themselves, but the FIFA fan zones at watch parties and at stadiums, every little experience, the trophy tour. So it's just really taking a full lens and human-centered approach to how we look at marketing.
Amazing. Yeah, that's quite a storied career. I would really like your perspective. Where is AI creating the most meaningful change when it comes to insights today?
Yeah, I think we were, I guess as a company, I was lucky enough when I started 3 years ago that AI was already starting to be embraced by the organization. We created enterprise or have enterprise versions of Copilot and ChatGPT that we can use, that's integrated into our systems. We were encouraged to use it. There's training, webinars, and sessions set up for everyone from basic AI understanding to prompting to using now AI to create images and stuff. So there's definitely a organizational there to get people using it and not be afraid of it and encouraging people to adopt it. So that's been great. In human insights and research and everything that we've been doing in particular, it's been great to just see how AI, there's so much components of what we do in insights and audience segmentation and understanding consumers that AI can use. I guess one of the big questions for us is, there are some components of understanding humans where fundamentally it's probably better to understand humans directly talking to humans versus AI. There's this balance that we've been trying to strike between, yes, AI can be very efficient. They can do things a lot faster. They can come up with answers really quickly. The question is, are we confident in the answers? Are we confident that the answers AI gives us, whether it's a synthetic persona or testing creative with AI, is really being confident in that the answers we're getting are actually what humans are actually saying, experiencing, will react or engage with a piece of content or marketing the way that we typically would want. So we still do a lot of human-based research or traditional research with focus groups or diaries or surveys, ethnography studies, etc. So it's really a balance. Like we definitely go by the mantra that there needs to be a human in the loop, even if we're using AI. And then we have an AI governance portal at Coke where every AI project needs to be submitted, not necessarily to govern and say, this is how you should or shouldn't do things, but really to help people and guide people through the process. Also, we've done similar projects across the organization, helping to scale that or not redo projects or spend money again when we've already done a similar project. So share resources across the organization as well.
So, sounds like you were steeped into it. And maybe the first topic to me is, you mentioned that synthetic personas, right? That is synthetic research overarching is just getting a lot of attention. So since you're right in the middle of David, maybe for our listeners, if you could talk a little bit about synthetic personas, what are they and where can they help marketers and how are people using them?
Yeah, I'd say the basic definition is really just a synthetic version of a human consumer. Now, that can take on many different ways or manifest itself in different ways. Like you can have a digital twin, which is like a digital version of me or you that someone can interact with. You can create synthetic respondents in a quantitative survey and use LLM, like we would create a regular persona in the traditional way. Here's the demographics, here's the psychographics, here's their passions and lifestyle interests. You have all the different attributes that make up a persona that we would use in a traditional non-AI way. Now we're just going to program the LLM with those same inputs, all those attributes, certain age, socio income, lifestyle interests, passion points, motivations, values, etc. So just like we would create a persona on a PowerPoint slide or whatnot, now we're going to just use those same attributes to train the LLM model. Now, survey-based approach, you can say, I want 60,000 respondents. So now I can say, do I want 5,000 each of a certain type of respondent in different age ranges, different attributes, etc., which is one way to say, so you have a very varied group of respondents. So it's easy to create 60,000 respondents in a very short amount of time versus in traditional research, going out and recruiting 60,000 people is time consuming, often difficult to get the exact type of person you're looking for, and also can be very expensive depending on also the market. We're typically doing research on a global basis for a global campaign like for Coke. So multiple markets create multiple different situations and challenges in recruiting those respondents. So synthetic makes it a lot easier. Now, like I said earlier, one challenge is it doesn't replace human respondents in every situation. So we're really learning and piloting where is it best used for, what situations, what parts of the creative development or marketing development lifecycle is it best used for, because it's not going to be great for every situation. So we're learning that. And there's also a lot of different companies out there. You can do a quick search and find tons of synthetic persona type of companies or that have that expertise or that skill set or functionality capability. Because the other component is there are lots of companies now that are aiding in getting human research respondents, but using AI and helping in that process, or AI in going through the answers, both unstructured and structured data, to help speed up the process. So it's still there are AIs, different flavors or levels of AI involvement, from pure AI of synthetic personas to using AI with human-based respondents to help with the efficiency and speed of doing more traditional research. So it has a full spectrum of use cases as well as the ability to constantly apply it.
Now, you mentioned, interestingly, that synthetic personas are not a good fit in all situations. The general rule of thumb, is it like early research that synthetic personas are best for, or what is your overarching guidance? And the companion question to that is accuracy. I mean, it all boils down to that. Like, if your synthetic persona respondents provide a representative response to real human beings, like, I don't know, what is the standard deviation that you guys see in general, or if there's an industry standard?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, I think as a general rule, I would say yes. So like you said, using it for earlier stage research, we see a little bit more confidence in, just say, for example, you have 10 different ideas that you're exploring for a campaign or for a brand platform. Using early stage synthetic personas or to help funnel it down to the top 3 or 4 ideas, building confidence in that ability to say, yes, we can get similar responses a lot quicker, a lot more cost efficiently to get to the top 3 or 4 ideas. But then once we start to really hone in on those ideas and fine tune them, then as you get a little bit later stage or more towards the final development, we're still going to do more traditional human-based pre-testing or copy testing or research, and then validate that, especially for larger campaigns. So that's definitely one area, more confident. We're generally seeing probably, if we can get the AI models to be 80 to 90% accurate, that's a pretty good number. We do, the good thing about, at least for us, we have tons of historical research about our different audiences and markets. So obviously we always want to know what are the latest trends, what's happening right now. But we do have a pretty good idea of, like, historically what switching behaviors people have, what drinking occasions people have, what motivations, etc. So we're checking it against that to understand, does it make sense? We just have to do like a gut check based on both experience and past research of, does it make sense what we're saying? We've done some pilots with some synthetic persona or AI vendors where it's easy to get back a very large report that looks very robust and chock full of and insights, and seems very thorough, just like any one of us interacting with our AI model individually. It can give you an output that looks very professional, very put together, makes tons of sense, but are the insights truly insightful? And that's what we're starting to see a lot of. It's easy to get a large volume output, a 100-page slide deck that was mostly put together through an AI model after the synthetic persona research. But then the question for us is, are there insights there? So I've seen some instances and some examples where which can happen also in traditional research, I might say as well. Like that happens. The hypothesis you went in with, maybe it was validated, maybe it wasn't not, but it didn't get maybe the insights you thought you were. We just need to be careful that like the insights truly we think are insightful, that it comes down to a core human tension or human need that we're uncovering or learning from. So that's the watch out. But yeah, in general, it's feeling more and more confident, but in the right use cases would be the case.
Now, a lot of what you said is so heavily predicated on data quality. Like, what is the data that you're using to train the AI in order to leverage synthetic personas? Because if you don't get that right, it's garbage in, garbage out. That is such an essential part of that. But do you see the results vary dramatically based on data quality? Because obviously, when you're doing research all around the world, there may be data quality varies dramatically in some countries versus others. And does that have a bearing on the right use cases for synthetic personas?
Yeah, it's a great point. 100% data quality in the old adage is definitely true with AI, garbage in, garbage out. You really need to be careful. Like I was saying before, like we have so much data in research just historically and in our data sets. So we are using that. I think we definitely, like with our enterprise versions of the AI models, where they have access to a lot of our historical data as well, or presentations, papers, whatnot. So we're constantly valuing it against that and using those to train the models. I think one thing we are encouraged not to do, which I think some people that use just your off-the-shelf AI models or a non-enterprise version of ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or whatnot, like we need to be the balance of it drawing upon general knowledge that's out there on the internet or that the LLM is drawing from that's public versus our enterprise data and that kind of quality. So the data that we are feeding into the model to train a persona, for example, where it's coming from our internal data sets that also use our third-party data partners, whether it's a Nielsen or whatever, like that, we already have trusted data there. Like we're confident in that data for the most part. So that using that to train the models, we're very confident. When we would not want to say, let's go out and just comb the public domain or public internet and have the model scrape data for that. There is a balance because there is, like, we do want to know like the latest trends, the latest things happening in a particular local market. If we're looking at media or a different activation in the local area, I also want to know what's happening politically, what's happening with the economy, what's happening with culture, those local areas, what's happening with content creators. So there's an element of data quality and trusting the data that we're training the model from, combined with, we also want to understand culturally what's happening in that world or in that local market from a trend perspective or other areas, other data signals, I should say, that we don't have internally, that we could either get from a third-party source or from that local data source.
Yeah, it's always fascinated me when thinking about synthetic persona is how do you, based on the analysis of the synthetic persona, how would you gauge trends versus a mistake? Like, but at the end of the day, it's not real. But is there ways to mitigate against that, where you're using synthetic persona that you're seeing trends emerge and you're like, wait, this data is a genuine trend or is it just skewed? Especially in a highly cultural consumer-facing brand like Coca-Cola, which is so intrinsically involved with all of those external factors that you're talking about. What's the approach there out of curiosity?
Yeah, I think it is when we get an insight or a trend that's emerging or that we see from AI or from persona. I think just like in traditional sense, you just need to validate that. One data point is not a trend. If you start to see it multiple times in multiple places over a time period, then it becomes something that is replicable, but also is actual. You start to feel that it's real. So it's not just an isolated data point. So you still need to validate that, which I would say, let's not use AI to validate an AI generated insight. Let's see if we see that same point elsewhere. Talk to local experts, talk to people in the local market see if they're seeing the same thing. Again, that's a point where you may then say, let's check this with real humans. Let's get whether it's a survey or a focus group or talking to local experts or whatnot, but ask them if they're seeing the same thing. And if they are, to what extent? Is it isolated to a specific niche group or smaller segment? So yeah, I think that's where there's a real need to keep that human in the loop, to validate the insights or outputs from an AI and validate that it's not just an isolated data point or something that's the AI maybe picked up on a signal. But the AI models in general, like, it's really good, which is where one of the things you brought up in the beginning was audience segmentation. Like, AI in general is really good at averaging tons and tons of data input and coming up with the next best thing that either you're asking it to do or it's interpreting what could be next. So it's making that assumption. So if it's starting to see some little data signals come out there, it's going to extrapolate that out and say, this is what I think could happen next, or this is what you're asking me to do, or I'm asking the model to do. It wants to give you the right answer, but it also wants to give you the answer that it's expecting to happen. So if there's a few little data points, like a trend versus something that's maybe not going to grow into a full-blown trend, but it's isolated, like, it doesn't know that yet. So it could pick up a bunch of things that are happening and say, yes, I think this is going to continue to grow and grow to additional audience segments or different age groups. But the reality is in real life that it may just stop with a small group or in a small local area and not extend to become a full-blown cultural trend. And that's where you look at Kantar Global Monitor or Morning Consult or all these different companies that also do trend reports. It's good to validate and say, are they seeing this with their models? And they also they have their AI attached to their trend reports or their reporting. So we can see if it is a local thing, or if it is a global thing, or if it is something that just happened over a 3-6 month period and then start to wane or die out. It's where some real human intuition in checking needs to occur, I believe.
No, that is really fascinating. So you mentioned audience segmentation. I'd like to unpack that a little bit. Like, how has AI changed audience segmentation in your world?
I think audience segmentation, if you go back even before synthetic personas and even before AI became such a widely available tool to all of us through the AI models, like audience segmentation and using technology or the earlier versions of that before ChatGPT became so commercially available, like just that amount of data across multiple segments, that's what LLMs or just data and analytics and automation was really built for, or one of the key use cases. So you take lots of data from lots of different audience segments and find all the different commonalities between different groups of people. So that's inherently like what an AI model can be really good at, or an LLM in general. So like that takes a human, like just lots of time and effort and lots of Excel spreadsheets and combining different data sets to say, here are all the common attributes of these group of people that share these traits. An LLM or AI model can do that really quickly, and also now connect into different platforms. So understanding which audience segments share different attributes or traits, that's pretty straightforward to do. Now you can, like a lot of what's happening now is how you can use different data sets into it. So what became a very laborious, very kind of niche skill set for, I think, very highly trained like data scientists and data analytics professionals to understand how to fuse different data sets together based on lots of common attributes. An AI model can do that much quicker and much more efficiently. So you're taking different data sets, not just once you have your audience segmentation, now you can combine it with retail data, with first party data, with lots of different third party data sets. So that's what we're seeing now, not just internally at Coke, but with a lot of our partners, like our agency partners. But we're looking to combine all those different data sets along with the audience segmentation data to then determine, here are the niche of groups of people that have the attributes and characteristics that we're looking for, like consumption moments or purchase occasions, that create those data signals to say, yes, we want to match this person in this segment with this piece of creative and this media channel or platform, like in Meta or TikTok or whatnot. So combining all those together to I was talking about audience segmentation and personalization and optimization of creative 10, 15 and more years ago. But the reality was to do that at scale with tons of different segments and tons of different iterations of creative was very, and also very costly. Now that's becoming a lot cost efficient and quicker to implement as well as scale. So everything I just said to understand how you can create not just an audience segmentation, but different subsegments of groups that are very important and exhibit the characteristics of what you want from a high performing segment. It may be a small number segment, but very high performing. In the past, you would want to find the efficiency of going after as many people with the qualities that you want to find from a high performing audience segment that have the performance drivers that you're looking for. But now with personalization becoming a lot more easier and attainable, you can actually create customized creative from a lot more multiple segments much more cost efficiently. So you can small sub segment of people that may not have the volume you want, sense, but are still very valuable. Now you can create the creative or that offer or that promotion specifically for that group in a cost efficient way. So it's just allowing personalization at scale based on the audience segmentation that the AI can help with. And then combining all those different data signals together give you that confidence as well as that signal to say, yes, this group can be very valuable. And now let's customize the offer, promotion, message, et cetera, for that group.
Awesome. So that's super interesting. And you mentioned, David, creative testing. What are you seeing in the creative testing arena?
Yeah. In the pre-AI era, a lot of it was you do your traditional creative testing, whether it's focus groups or individual testing with your traditional companies like Kantar and Ipsos and whatnot that would work with. We'd put the creative in front of as many people as possible to see what they thought of the advertising. So AI is involved in, has improved that in many different ways. Like the old school way 20, 30 years ago was you have animatics, you have storyboards, you have different early stage creative ideas that you put in front of people to see if it resonated and engage with them. But the stimuli that you put in front of respondents was very rudimentary. It wasn't polished. It didn't look like a final ad. So there was always this challenge of, did people really understand what we were trying to communicate? Did they get the idea? Over time, and the ability to create more polished creative became easier to put in front of people, at least to understand whether they got the idea, or they got the message, et cetera. But now you can use AI to generate stimuli and ads that look pretty polished. So that's eliminated that a little bit. But I think AI comes into play in a bunch of different areas. One is you can have AI in the sense of like synthetic personas, like we've been talking about, put the creative in front of a synthetic persona and ask the persona what they think of the advertising. Just like we were saying before, there are challenges you need to watch out. Early stage, probably fairly confident that we can get some feedback from early stage, but the more final stage creative, ready to run in the air, run on specific platforms like Meta and TikTok. And I think you got to be a little bit more wary of, is the AI response giving you what you want it to be in or say, or is it actually understanding the context of the platform or the situation that people are going to experience the ad in or the content in? So there's an element of that, but it takes on, there are lots of different flavors of AI, obviously, just like with personas. So there's all the different traditional research companies now have AI models that they trained from thousands and thousands of ads that they've tested over the last decades. So they've taken actual humans training their AI LLM models that essentially do the same kind of testing that you would perform on humans. So those are, I've seen 90% confidence levels and higher with some of our partners and vendors. So we're pretty comfortable with using some of those approaches. Again, it doesn't replace all of human testing, but it does enable the testing of a lot more creative stimuli, as well as creative adaptations and variations, like we're talking about with the personalization. So we can test a lot more versions, a lot more cost efficiently. The other component is, yes, we're a global company, so there are challenges like we're talking about in recruiting respondents in certain markets in Asia and Africa and in smaller countries where it's harder to get to a big, the population. It's much harder to see if the creative's going to actually make an impact. on one hand, AI can start to replicate some of those, again, from past human responses and training. So they have direct AI models that test the AI or test the ad based on the training of the AI model directly, but also synthetic personas and digital twins and whatnot that you can put the creative in front of. So it also depends on the type of creative testing you're doing. We're still experimenting, and I don't do a lot in the research or innovation area where we're testing out new drinks or new flavors and stuff like that. But that's another area we've been piloting and seeing, how can we test new creative variants, new flavors, new areas of exploration, not just whether a message will resonate in an ad. So it runs the spectrum. So yeah, the models are getting much more robust in terms of the confidence level we have in the AI trained version of models, especially when it's been trained on hundreds of thousands of traditional human-based research. And now the AI is just allowing us to do that similar research much quicker and cost efficiently.
Are you seeing that this is resulting in an increased velocity of campaigns just because now you can, both on the creative production side, but also on the testing side? So I don't know if there are a number of campaigns pre-AI were X. Are you seeing them velocity increase to 2X or more just because it is not possible to do that?
Interesting question. I wouldn't say more campaigns necessarily. The speed at which we can go to market and react. So the time lag between research, the insight created from the research, and acting and leveraging that insight to create a marketing message or a campaign, that I think has been condensed down, which gives us a lot more confidence that yes, once you have because typically it could be a year or more sometimes from that initial research to the marketing campaign seeing the light of day, and things change in a year very quickly now. So was the trend or the insight that was originally based on, is it still valid a year later? Many times it is, but now that time is compressed. So we can get from the time from insight to brief to create development to on air or in market is a lot shorter, quicker, which is great. There are definitely cost efficiencies in just the creation of the campaign as well. And yes, if you use AI to generate a campaign, potentially, but I'm not talking about just replacing human production with AI production to do that. That's part of it. That's a whole separate conversation. But yeah, I think you're seeing the ability to get to market quicker, more cost efficiently. So I think more confident in the ability to then localize those campaigns and how that be customized or tailored to individual local nuance, local data signals, local trends, local audience segments, et cetera. So and that's a shift to what we're seeing. Maybe other global believer, Procter & Gamble, other global brands or companies probably as well, which is true in marketing. That's not true because of AI, just in general, like the ability to act and activate a campaign on a local level that resonates with local audience segments has always been true. So the ability to do that now is just easier, more cost efficient and quicker to market.
I hear stories and read articles about the future is going to be autonomous and self-correcting campaigns or campaigns adapting to near real-time audience behavior or audience trends. Do you prescribe to that idea? Are you optimistic about it, or do you think it's all a lot of hype?
No, I prescribe to it. I do think you need to have a healthy bit of skepticism and not just take everything at face value. But I do think it's definitely happening. I do think I see an acceleration. I see a use. I do think, obviously, just reading some of the articles coming out of Cannes this year, AI obviously was a big buzzword. But I saw an interesting interview with Martin Sorrell, and I agree with what he was saying, which is basically, yeah, there's a lot of hype around AI and data video with AI, but the true value that's being created was his point, which is a lot of what we've been talking about, is like the use of AI with just data and analytics, and especially when it comes to marketing and campaigns, like the actual development of the strategy and media and activation of the campaign using AI to crunch all those numbers, crunch the data, be much more efficient and predictive in planning and buying the media, as well as where the right touch points are going to be at different times, and optimizing in real time and seeing more real-time data signals, and AI can capture that, flag both opportunities and some, whether it's negative performance or positive performance, and optimize accordingly. So I think there's a lot more value that can be created by using AI in that component of the marketing lifecycle versus just the research or the upfront. Because we're talking about audience segmentation, like audience segmentation is going to be actually activated by the media team and the media plan to go into market on different platforms to push different creative at different times to different audiences. So how that is optimized. On one hand, for many years, we've been left up to the platforms themselves like Meta or Google to do a good amount of self-optimizing or recommendations on their side with their algorithms. But now I think a little bit more control is coming back to the brands and the agencies by deploying like self-made tools that look at these data signals, and AI can surface that really quickly, can look at tag and look at all the different elements of your ads that are performing well and easily extrapolate, oh, the ads that are performing the best have these elements or have these messages or are talking to these audiences. Now let's optimize in real time really quickly and either reduce or cut off some of the low performing stuff and really optimize or amplify some of the stuff that's performing well. And AI can do that extremely well and efficiently.
Speaking of Ken, one of the things I read was a big travel brand was using real-time weather patterns to end up marketing specific deals for those destinations, leveraging AI delivered on the fly. I think obviously it's got the creative guardrails and the messaging and all that kind of stuff, but that's fascinating. That's as close to autonomous as one can get. And I think there's going to be more and more of that. And I think one of the things that is enabling this is AI agents. So I want to get into that a little bit. How are AI agents beginning to show up in the world of marketing analytics and insights?
Yeah, it's a good one. Agents is definitely a hot topic right now for us. So it's basically any process that is repeated time and time again, which are a lot of, definitely when it comes to marketing, a lot of performance marketing and data analytics processes and ways of working are done over and over again. Like you're constantly doing the same campaign report, the same quarterly report, looking at the same metrics from a campaign to see whether it's performing or not. So those are things that are repeatable that agents can be really good at helping to make more efficient, not have to spend hours and hours consolidating the data and reports, but really focusing on the output of that report. So the agent can, once you understand all the different data inputs, it can grab that on a regular basis. So the automation of campaign performance report can really be much more automated using an agent. So that's one area. Another is, like I was mentioning, with all these different data sets that we want to fuse together or combine, whether it's first, second, third party data. So how can have an agent that's into an individual data, and those agents can now then talk to each other. They have one agent that's hyper-focused on extrapolating data or different components of one data. Say it's an internal, like first-party data, and then another agent that works with, a second-party, like retail media data from a partner. Now, how those agents talk to each other to see how the data fits together or the common attributes and where we can develop some insights. So there's agent-to-agent communication starting to happen. But there is a watch out with that because, like you're asking about data quality before, one piece of bad data from one agent that gets it from one data that hallucinates or gives a false positive or whatever, then that gets used by a second agent and then it starts to expand and grow. And so that one little error or that one little lack of confidence in the data can get extrapolated out and make the whole thing a bad data, essentially. So you have to be careful. But yeah, anything, we are using agents, not just in the use cases I just mentioned, but any repeatable process. I think I see people using it on an individual basis in terms of if they're constantly diving in weekly into a specific data to get out a certain report, then yeah, that process of using the data from an Excel spreadsheet and extrapolating it out and putting together a report can be easily automated using agents. So seeing it more and more on an individual basis, and then also at an enterprise basis and larger data sets to communicate with one another.
Yeah, when it comes to agent-to-agent communication, do you factor in data security and data privacy into the equation?
Yes, 100%. Absolutely. I think that's a critical component, just like in the data quality. That's actually one of the bigger challenges in these agent development of different agents, and especially the agent-to-agent communication, is all the data privacy and sharing requirements need to be worked out ahead of time. So we're confident that no data gets shared outside of an environment that we're not comfortable with, and whether it's using a data clean room or it's using on our own internal processes or systems. So yeah, all that gets worked out ahead of time.
Cool. All right. Looking ahead, David, before we wrap up, where should marketing leaders begin if they want to use AI for insights and analytics? What's the typical approach for folks who are just getting started here?
I guess, well, one part of that is it depends on sort of how large or sophisticated an organization you are. I think anywhere from small business with a few people can start to use it to large organizations as well. So I think it's applicable to all sizes and types of businesses. But let's just take a small business for example. I mean, I think you can go in and everything we're talking about with synthetic personas and audience segmentation and whatnot, like you can do that with a regular AI model. You don't need a bespoke like LLM trained just around synthetic personas to do that. Now, I say that knowing that if you do the larger, like the fully trained synthetic persona with a company and partner that does that, I think the confidence level goes up in terms of not just how the model works, the inputs and outputs of the model, the interaction and user experience with the model, that all improves. But you can create a synthetic persona somewhere rudimentary by just prompting your regular chat GPT or Gemini or Copilot. Like, so you can build the prompt, and this is where just understanding different, create the prompt to have all the attributes and descriptions that you want of your ideal consumer profile or consumer persona. So even a small business who understands their ideal customer profile really well can create a persona in the right prompting to mimic that persona. So, and then you have to trial and error a little bit. Like, are you going to just ask questions? Are you going to put stimuli in front of it to see what they respond? So a certain promotion or a piece of creative. And then as you get more sophisticated or larger business, and you have partners that can do that with you or for you, then the model gets a little bit more sophisticated. So I think I would just advocate, try it. Like, go in, jump in. All the things we've talked about in terms of, having a little bit of skepticism, being able to have your own way of validating whether the response and the outputs you're confident in for what your use cases are or your unique business situation. Whether it's past business performance or validate with real humans or gut check with others, but just have a way to say that you feel confident that you can check and say, well, the output, I feel confident because of X or Y. So I think it's just having your own sort of governance approach to how you are going to say, I feel confident in the output. But go in, start with the prompting, create agents. Like all the models allow you to create agents and create the right prompts and even more sophisticated approaches to that. So that's how I and a lot of others are kind of learning. You can take classes out there as well to learn how to do it better. I've done a little bit of that. Those are valid as well. Come to Marketing AI Pulse events, learn from other experts in the field. I don't be afraid. I think it's just like the early days of digital. I think everyone was like, do I go in quick? Do I create a new website? What do I do? How do I do it? Do I do it on my own? Do I hire a big, digital consulting firm or a web agency to build my web presence or my app or whatever? And yes, but over time, everything gets much more efficient and for smaller businesses or wider use cases. And now digital is just pervasive in everything that we do. So I think AI is going to become that a lot quicker and exponentially than even like digital would get infused into everyday work and life. But AI is going to happen. It already is happening much quicker than I think digital adoption, 20, 30 years ago. So now AI is, even if you don't go in and play around with a model and create agents and personas yourself, even in the background, like you do a Google search, you're going to get the AI results. So even in the background of everything that you're doing, you search for a trip on TripAdvisor, you're going to get AI recommendations. So AI is being infused in almost every use case of everything that we do, whether it's a consumer, individual, or business application. So it's in the background and in the forefront. So one, don't be afraid, and two, just start experimenting and using it yourself and seeing what works for your situation and your use cases. And three, like learn and validate and ask others, like at the Marketing AI Pulse events, or like with other experts in your company, others that are using it, share notes, see what works, what doesn't. That's the great thing about this, is like we're all learning at the same time.
Also, thank you so much, and appreciate the shout out to the Marketing AI Pulse community. Yes, there's a lot of very knowledgeable people, both online and in-person events. So we'll certainly encourage our listeners to participate. Well, David, thank you so much. This was so insightful.
Thank you, Aby. Appreciate it.
And to our listeners, thank you very much. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening. Big thanks to Spark Novus and the Marketing AI Pulse community. You can join the community at marketingaipulse.com.